we are actually in November now, so we can actually talk about the process of NaNoWriMo. Today is the 7th, I think, 6th or 7th.
7th.
So how's the first?
We're recording on the 7th.
Yeah.
By the time that we release this,
It'll be like the 10th or something.
37th.
Yeah, that's a real date.
Mm-hmm.
How's the first week been for you?
Well, I'm incredibly behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Are you?
Nah, dude. I'm ahead of the game.
Are you really ahead of? So you've written?
I just passed 10,000 last night. 10,000.
Shit.
Words. Yeah.
Fucking cranking them out.
Yeah. Passed 10,000 last night.
That's awesome.
I'm like right above, like if you're supposed to write 1667 per day, I'm writing like 1672 per day or something like that.
Yeah. For me, like I'm more focusing on trying to write every day. Like yesterday was the first day that I just straight up didn't write.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm also just outlining a lot.
Yeah.
And
so yeah, let's get into that. So we have approached this from two complete opposite ways. So let's talk about your process first.
okay, so normally my process, and we are very different as well because like our formats of writing, I normally write screenplays for movies, and you normally write novels. And for those that don't know anything about screenplays or novel writing, like they're obviously very different. Like when you write something for like intending it for it to be a movie, it has a very specific format.
Yep.
It has a very specific
and it's not
way that
flowery or frivolous or other
very,
words that start with F.
Is terse the right word? It's very like specific.
It's
like,
shaved down.
Yeah. Like there's no verb. Yeah, it's not verbose.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to write in a very specific way as far as showing and not telling, and you don't really go into what a character thinks as much.
And of course, like any writing, there's always exceptions to the rule. There's
True.
always people that do things differently and make it work. But for the most case, this is the way it works.
Right. So that's what I'm used to, and you're more used to prose. Normally, whenever I write a screenplay, I bring up a Microsoft Word doc. This is going to get really boring for people that aren't writers.
Bruh, that's why the timestamps are there. You can skip this.
So feel free to fucking skip right through
this
this.
is Writer's Corner, baby. We're gonna chat. We're gonna talk shop.
Right. But yeah, normally like my specific process for starting up a screenplay is I'll bring up a Microsoft Word document and I'll literally throw up all of the ideas that I have about that specific.
Like a brainstorm.
Yeah, just a brainstorm sheet of all of the things that all of the ideas that I have associated with that idea.
Now I know with this project, you went into like a deep outline phase.
Yeah. So I'm doing something different with this project in how, right. So with a normal screenplay, I'll do the Microsoft Word document and I'll brainstorm, and then I'll go through specific things. I'll get at least my characters outlined, my conflict, I'll outline that, as well as specific plot points. And what I've done for probably the past couple years is I take all of those plot points after I've written them out and fucking gotten them pretty well organized. I drag that over into a final draft document.
Okay. Final Draft is a software specifically made for writing scripts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I actually got that trick from Alex Garland, who I'm going to bring up later.
Nice.
But yeah, and as I write the actual screenplay in Final Draft, I'll take off those plot points and continue writing. For this, it's completely different because
it's not a screenplay.
Because it's not a screenplay, and I'm using Scrivener for the first time, which I think from now on I'm going to be doing all of my outlining within Scrivener.
Yeah, you like it that much?
Whether it's for a scripter or not.
Well, last time we talked, you hadn't had a chance to mess around in it
really fuck around with it. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like I explained it pretty well in the last episode as far as the ability to organize well. You can have the coolest thing about the program, about Scrivener, is the ability to have multiple documents on within the same software at the same time, and you can drag and drop really easy.
Oh, that's cool.
It's and it's just the innovative things about the software are all with organization and having multiple
really
documents, because you can have I don't know how you write or outline or anything like that, but like I used to just have one folder with the specific project. You know,
Yep, I do the same thing.
So Lunatic Fringe, you know, and these are all of my Microsoft Word documents. So I'll have one for I'll have a
Your
document
brainstorm, your outline, your actual script
and I'll have one for each character. For Scrivener, you can have all of those within one project.
Okay,
So
that's
you
kind
can
of like
have all
OneNote is sort of like that too.
Yeah, I've never used OneNote. But it's just really simple. It's pretty intuitive.
Yeah. The Chris and Kyle Show is not sponsored by Scrivener, but we support it.
But yeah, so like my growing pains are A, using Scrivener, B, the format of a fucking novel.
Yeah.
It's really tough for me. I constantly have to fall back on like, oh, okay, what do I do while I'm writing a script?
Yeah.
In order to sort of psych myself into being able to write, because I just get really fucking intimidated with writing a book and
it's
writing
big.
prose.
It's very big.
Well, it's very big, but like the actual format of writing.
Is it about writing? Is it about having to write, more descriptively? Is that what it is?
It's weird. Trying to evaluate it is kind of strange, because there's a lot of times during a script when I have it all fleshed out where I'm like, man, I wish that this was a regular book where I could just spend like 2 pages on this specific idea.
Yeah.
Or I could reveal to the audience just through words on the page what this character is doing. But I don't really do that a lot with my screenplays. You know, like I try to show how my characters are developing through actions,
Through their actions and their words,
through the visual narrative of film,
which makes sense for the medium.
Yeah. But it's like when I am just starting out with a novel, I'm like, oh man, I'll never be able to achieve that. So it's like the format of novel writing is shitting on my ability to write, and it's intimidating me.
Have you thought about just writing through the story as bare bones as possible, as close
I've
to
already
script?
done that.
Well, because your outline is so inclusive.
So the first day, I spent like my 1,666 words. I spent it just writing down like all of the plot points and sort of.
But in really deep detail, right?
No, not deep detail at all. It was. I mean, that the first day I was just like, I'm just gonna write I'm gonna write my words, and then you just get through the entire story with just this word amount. And then since then, I've been using this outline that I got from a guy named Christopher Downing. He wrote something called the Foolproof Outline. It was
this is a book.
Yeah, it's a book. But the book is explaining the outline itself and how to use it. And he uses Scrivener and has a template for the outline through Scrivener already that you can find online.
That's cool.
Christopher Downing, Foolproof Outline. And it's really extensive. This outline is really extensive. And I think that I'm just going to keep leaning on the outline throughout the entirety of the NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I'm literally like going scene by scene, and at the bare minimum, you're gonna have 500 words with each scene, just going through the outline itself.
Yeah.
So even if I tackle a couple scenes a day, I mean, it's gonna leave me around 1,000 words. I'm trying to not stress out too much
about the number. It's more about writing every day than it is.
Yeah, it's more about writing every day. And plus, we're both in this like huge transition period. I'm getting out of the Navy. We're moving to LA pretty soon.
Yeah.
So I'm not stressing out about it too much. And I'm reading a book right now called The Writing Life by Annie Dillard. And she's a Pulitzer Prize winning author. And she wrote this book of essays about her like perspective as an artist and sort of the ideas that you go through as a writer, and the struggles and pitfalls and shit. that you have. And fuck, why did I bring
Is this helping you sort of wrap your mind around not stressing about the word count thing and more about the just getting as long as you're getting something out?
Literally, she brings up the fact that it takes years to write a good book.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
it takes years. I mean, so like the idea of like being able to write one in a month. I mean, it's really just about the work. And,
NaNoWriMo is not about, for
Yeah.
anyone out there who's participating along with us and feeling similar struggles,
Mm-hmm.
or anyone just curious, NaNoWriMo is not about writing your masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
It's about getting into the habit of writing every day
Mm-hmm.
and having a goal to push you there.
Yeah. But like as much as I know that, it's hard to believe it,
Yeah.
you know, it's hard to accept it because I will, be, in Scrivener trying to work out this outline, and I can't go straight from like brain to page as easy with novel writing as I can with scripts. Because with scripts, I can literally see the movie happening as I'm writing. Whereas, books, I don't read enough fiction in order for me to be like, I know how this is going to look coming off the page.
Yeah.
But
you watch a lot of movies and you watch a lot of
But
TV,
I watch
so
much. Yeah, I watch some.
it.
Yeah, exactly. So
That's
I can literally like visualize the end product so much easier with script writing than with.
So not. I mean, you already mentioned how the number isn't the goal here, but do you know what you're at right now? Do you know what you're at number wise, or are you just not even paying attention to it?
I'm probably like at like 2,500 words.
Okay.
So I'm like super behind.
But does that include all your outlining and everything, or no?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But you have the story like fully mapped out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I have the story fully mapped out, but I also don't think that I'm going to be able to get 50,000 words out of it. I think that I'm probably going to end up somewhere around like 20,000 words.
You mean
just through
by the end of the month, or by the time you're done writing it?
By the end of the month, I would be happy if I got 20,000 words out. I also know that 20,000 words is going to be like the most bare bones of like getting the plot down and not having any description at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. That's what revision is for.
Well, yeah. Well, and it's just also what I'm used to. I'm used to writing, 19 to 25,000 words with a script.
Well, yeah, a script is, for a film about 90 pages and not a lot of words per page, whereas a novel is obviously longer than that. I'll talk about so like I said, we kind of came at this from completely different approaches. I completely changed my idea for the story I was going to do in the first place. We had kind of decided we were going to do this and do it through the podcast a little bit, and I just kind of went to my old idea folder and I found something that I thought might have worked. And I was like, yeah, I'll just do this one. Well, I sat down and started like trying to plan it before November started. And I realized that I just didn't know if I didn't know where it was going to go enough to write it the way that NaNoWriMo kind of requires you to just bang it out. I kind of realized that writing something that's mystery themed, you need really intensive planning, and you need to kind of figure out, what are the clues are going to be, what are red herrings, what's drawing from one clue to the next, and all these different. It takes much more planning to write a mystery than other types of things. So I sat down on November 1st, and I basically went, you know what? I'm just going to come up with something new right now. I've got to get 1,667 words out today. I'll just, I'll lean into my wheelhouse of things that I like and that I've written before and sort of try to come up with something more in that space. So something that's more adventure driven and more, I wouldn't call it young adult because I'm not writing about teenagers, but it's more in that direction than the story that I was going to do. So I come up with an idea basically of, I still wanted to write a fantasy, though. I still wanted to be in a fantasy world, in this idea of approaching the fantasy from within it, where they don't necessarily know how fantastical the world is. That was kind of a similar vibe I wanted to keep. So I did the same thing as you. I opened up a Word document, and I just started brainstorming. Whatever I thought, I typed it down.
Yeah.
And
Just puking out ideas.
yeah, just puking out ideas. And I think I literally wrote fantasy, like, just like buzzwords like that. And then I think I wrote down something along the
like
lines
sometimes I'll write out quotes like that, like I hear a main character say. Like,
I literally
a
wrote
specific idea. If they like remind me of a certain person, like I'm like, oh, this philosophy, like Alan Moore's philosophy is fucking sort of aligns with this person's.
Yeah, I think I literally wrote. I wrote, magic is real, the gods are real, and we have to deliver this package to ... a dragon. And I was like, oh, that's fun. Okay, what is that? It popped into my head, and I was like, that's fun. So I came up with this idea of like a fantasy world where there's this courier system of these kind of this semi-illegal group that delivers packages back and forth for people that maybe they couldn't move in the open kind of thing. And then I kind of thought about what kind of cast of characters I wanted to include in it. And I said, I kind of want to lean into my love of D&D, and sort of I took from the ideas of a D&D world and those the classes of a classic Dungeons and Dragons party. And so I kind of leaned into that to build the cast a little bit. And I basically wrote out one page. I wrote out, that sentence. I wrote out a few names, and then I wrote out a couple plot point ideas. It'd be cool if this happened down the line, and it'd be cool if this happened down the line. And how is this secret going to be revealed down the line? I just put basically some bullet points, and then started writing. And I wrote, I want to say like 1,900 words on the first day and like 1,800 on the second day. And then I worked all weekend. So that's sort of my, the biggest struggle so far is if I'm working, or a day like today when we're recording all day, it's finding the time to get the amount of words. And so like on Saturday, I think I wrote like 1,400. So I went below, but I was already past the number. So I went below the number, but I was still on pace. But I literally wrote from like 10:45 to midnight before I got the numbers in. So I just took as much time as I could find to get them in. But so far I found that I've been able, basically what I've done is I've approached it as I sit down. The big thing for me is just forcing myself to write, because I feel like once I get going, the 1,667 isn't that hard for me. It's like you said before, it's just puking it out and accepting that it doesn't have to be good.
You're right.
The first time you do it. And that's sort of, I've been checking out different, I follow different authors on Twitter and different YouTube videos of people. And basically the advice that you always get whenever you see a video or something of a writer giving advice for writing is they always just tell you that the best thing to do is just write. And it's one of those things where you go, yeah, I get that, but how do you do it?
Right.
And it literally is just that. You just have to force yourself to do it.
Yeah.
And then you have to force, what I think the best thing about NaNoWriMo is developing the habit of doing it every day and treating it like it's a job.
Yeah, it's a job. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I've realized is the 1,667 word total, I can crank that out in an hour and a half.
Really?
And really, I don't think it's ever taken me more than 3 hours.
Yeah. I mean, maybe because you have the habit of writing that sort of format. I don't know. I don't know what my hitches are as far as cranking out those words. Yeah, I don't know. So you've done a lot of work with D&D and DMing and shit like that. Like, how do you feel like that's influenced your writing style?
I think
and your process.
I think if nothing else, what playing and running D&D has done has helped me with just the general blanket of storytelling, knowing what makes a good story. If I'm playing a character in a D&D game that someone else is running, I have to think about the story that the DM is giving me and how my character fits into it and how I can influence it. That's a complete alternate way of when you think of as a screenwriter or an author. You're not thinking from that perspective, but it's interesting to look at it from that perspective. So now if I dive into the story I'm writing now and I have a character named Basil, if I try to look at it from Basil's perspective, that's kind of how I'm getting these words out, I think, so quickly. It's because I have 4 point of view characters in the story I'm writing right now. So I sit down and say, okay, the next POV is Basil. What is Basil?
Are you writing from first person?
No, third person.
Okay.
But still, I mean, like Harry Potter's third person, but you're in Harry's head.
Yeah, exactly.
So in this scene, I say, okay, Basil's scene is next, based on where the story has ended up. And, crashing that into where Basil is and what I know about Basil and what Basil knows, what would he be doing right now? So I think I say, okay, oh, he would obviously do this. And I just start going. I just go and I see where it takes me. It's not necessarily any good. I don't know, because another thing is don't go back and read it, because it's not about the run through November isn't about the thing being necessarily good. It's about it being done, and then you can go back and actually weave it together and make it make more sense and everything. I think from a DM perspective, it's more just. I think an interesting thing, because I haven't even brought this up. I didn't outline at all.
Okay.
Normally I'll make an outline.
Right.
For this, because on the day of, I just jumped into it. I wrote that one page of ideas.
So you literally only have one file right now that has...
I have two different files. One is literally called The Courier's Ideas, and the other one is just called The Courier's.
Right.
And that's the story.
Okay, so that's like your physical manuscript that you're writing. Okay.
Yeah, and basically I came up with ideas for plot points, but they're not in any order. It's just, this would be cool if this happened, or if this happened, or if this was revealed. Mm-hmm. And I might get to them and I might not. They're just the things that sort of triggered the story in my head.
Right.
But the kind of thing I think that running D&D has sort of maybe helped me, which I have never really examined this, but I think when you run Dungeons and Dragons for people, you have to be ready for your ideas to be taken completely off the rails.
Right.
You have to be willing to be flexible with the story you're trying to tell, along with the players around you, and where they take the story to unexpected places. Right. And I think straight raw discovery writing this is a similar adventure, kind of, because I'll finish, a chapter or a scene or whatever, or a POV portion, and I'll say, okay, I'm jumping from Basil to the next character. And now, what is this character? What do they want to do? Because the thing is, if I'm in their point of view, this scene has to be sort of about them in some way. So how are they going to influence where the story goes next? Mm-hmm. Well, in the long term, it's still about these four people delivering this thing to this place. So it has to go there long term, but short term, I think, is sort of how I'm breaking it down more day by day, kind of.
No, yeah, like I wanted to ask that question because it just I wanted to figure out how similar and dissimilar writing your own narrative is versus like being a DM. And because with being a DM, you're writing a story for characters that are going to have their own sentience to them, like their own sentience. And how do you approach that versus having a story where you're literally 100% in control? Yeah. But in the same token, I always try to look at my characters as if they are alive. As if they are alive and they have their own sentience and they have their own reality to them. Whenever I come to a character that I feel like I might be making two-dimensional, I try to delve into them more. And I feel like the way that I approach characters is the way that I kind of approach people. If I am looking at them in a sort of two-dimensional way, it's only because I haven't spent enough time with them. Yep.
Have you ever done the thing, I've seen different writers talk about this, where they will literally just interview their characters or do a scene where it's just their character going throughout their own thing that's nothing to do with their story, as a way to try to get to know them better?
I've done it with certain things. I haven't done that as much with the stories that I've written, but I'll do it with video games.
Okay.
So say
like you're playing Skyrim or something?
No, well, not Skyrim, but with 2K, right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, with 2K19,
yeah.
Or any 2K game, that NBA basketball game, for those that don't know video games well. But you can play in like a My GM mode. Yep. And the GM that I created, his name was Cash Dukin, and he was a half black, half Japanese guy that went to MIT and then played for the Warriors. And then after his career with the Warriors, ended up becoming a GM. For the Phoenix Suns. This was 2K18, my franchise in there.
Are you sure
this is going to get really
Suns?
So they ended up going from being the Phoenix Suns to the Seattle Supersonics. It's like a narrative that 2K puts in there for you, where you can make the decision to have your team stay in their current city or move to the Supersonics.
Bring
right?
back the Supersonics in real life.
So what ended up happening in my franchise is my team sucked for the first year, like anybody does with their franchises in their
sim the first season so you can get who you want.
You sim the first season so that you can have a really good draft pick. But I ended up getting all of the draft picks I wanted, as well as getting Kevin Durant in the second season. And then I went 0 for 82 in the first season, and then the second season I won the championship. But like 4 or 5 seasons in, my team had won like 3 or 4 championships, and they had acquired Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Greg Popovich, like just all of this really, it's power fantasy, but I remember one day driving to work, and I listened to an NBA podcast called The Low Post. It's hosted by an ESPN reporter, Zach Lowe. And it's a really good podcast, my favorite basketball podcast. And in my head, I listened to a podcast between Cash Dukin and Zach Lowe.
Who was he talking to in real life?
Huh?
Who was he talking to in real life?
Well, there wasn't anything playing on the car's radio.
Oh, gotcha.
It was quiet, but the voices were in my head.
Oh, I thought you meant you were listening to it and you pretended the person he was talking to was Cash Dukin.
No.
This is even weirder than that.
No. It's even creepier. I got to so I listening to my own head. Yeah. In reality, there was complete silence.
Yeah.
But yeah, fucking Zach Lowe was asking the normal questions that he would be asking anybody within the current narrative of my 2K franchise. And it was crazy fun. Just writing, because it was literally just writing dialogue between the back and forth between them. Nothing actually like hit paper or anything,
no, it was just an idea
existing in my head, which is 90% of writing, which I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel that 90% of writing happens within your head. There are certain days that are thinking days. There are certain days that are typing days. Both days are writing days. I love that quote.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, I agree with you, but for the specific thing I'm doing right now,
for NaNoWriMo,
it is it is avoid the pitfall that a thinking day can become, which is just I'm just sitting there thinking and not getting anything done.
True.
Yeah, because I think there's a danger in that.
I think that there is a danger potentially, but I think that the ideas that Stephen King brings this up in On Writing about how he doesn't write down the ideas that he has for his books because the best ones always, like, he'll remember.
Yeah.
Which I think that there's a pro and a con to that, because you might just forget a really
You might
good
think
idea
of something awesome. And
then just forget about it.
Yeah, like you're falling asleep and you think of something cool and you go, I'll put that down in the morning, and when you wake up, it's gone. Yeah.
But I do like thinking about things for a long time and then writing about them. I like the current thing that I'm writing for NaNoWriMo, I've had in my head for at least 6 months.
Yeah.
So I like dwelling on things.
Well, and that kind of speaks to how you were able to map out the whole story already.
Yeah.
Whereas I have no clue what's going to happen in mine. I had another thing I kind of thought of is, like I said, I normally outline things, but something I kind of like about what I'm doing now, and I don't outline in super detail. It's usually general detail. But I think that sometimes when I outline something, or when I come up with an idea, or like, God forbid, I come up with an idea and I go, oh, that could be like a trilogy or something. And then you put like, oh, this is what could happen in all 3 books, or this is what will happen by the end of the story. In my head, a part of me is like, okay, that story's done. I know what happens. Has that ever happened to you?
What do you mean? So that story is done. What do you mean?
Sometimes I feel like if I come up with the whole story before I write it, in my mind, I've already told it because I know what happens. So it feels done, even though I haven't written it.
Okay, so if you haven't typed it out, you've already thought up the story, you've gotten to the end, and you feel a sense of achievement.
A sense of finality.
Right.
Not achievement. because I know I haven't written it.
Okay.
But I go, oh, I know what happens.
Like there's
I feel satisfied in the experience of the story.
but there's a closure there. Like you
Yep. I know how I want the characters to feel, and I know how the end should go, and I know what will happen to how the bow will be wrapped up, and I feel a sense of closure.
Do you feel like that robs you of the craving of writing? Like the motivation
I think it robs.
to write?
Yeah. I think it robs me of the. I like. I don't remember the exact quote, but I like the idea that you should never rely on motivation to write, because you'll just never write, or you'll write for a week and then you'll take 6 months off.
Yeah.
I do think it really does need to be a habit and something that you make yourself do, which is something that I have failed at multiple times at making it a thing.
Right.
I'll go through 2-month periods where I write a lot and then not write for 6 months at all. And I think part of it is that sort of thing where I'll come up with a whole story and where it's going, and I think I will. I'll have this sense of closure, and then not feel the need to finish it because I have that weird satisfaction.